Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is May 26th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1966, the luchador known as Mysterioso. 1968, Pat Kenny, a.k.a. Simon Diamond. 1979, Ashley Massaro. 1981, Phantasma Jr. 1982, the heart and soul of the Hart Foundation, Natalia. And last but not least, 1987, he's not a forgotten son here, it's Steven Cutler. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for May 26th. 2012, the original evil German, Hans Schmidt. 2013, Hector Garza. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for May 26th. Jumping in our Wayback Machines and going to 1950, where we see Gorgeous George defeat Don Eagle for the AWA World Heavyweight title in Chicago, Illinois. Moving 9 years to 1959, the Corazons defeat Angelo Martinelli and Luis Hernandez for the vacant NWA Texas Tag Team titles in Dallas, Texas. Grooving into the 60s, 1961, Duke Kaminko and Tony Martin defeat Rito Romero and Dory Dixon for the Texas version of the NWA World Tag Team titles. Fast forwarding 3 years to 1964, Jackie and Don Fargo defeat Tojo Yamamoto and Alex Perez to win the Mid-American version of the NWA Southern Tag Team titles in Nashville, Tennessee. That same day in 1964 sees Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Champion Bruno Sammartino do double duty in Bridgeport, Connecticut, first defeating Hans Mortimer and then Klondike Bill. Skipping ahead 2 years to 1966, Killer Carl Cox and Joe Carrillo defeat Yoshimura and Giant Baba to win the vacant JWA All-Asia Tag Team titles. But don't feel bad for Yoshimura, because just 1 year later, him and Antonio Inoki defeat Waldo Von Erich and Ike Eakins to win those same All-Asian Tag Team titles right back. Staying in 1967, we see Al Costello and Carl Von Brunner defeat Bill Miller and Bobo Brazil for the Detroit version of the NWA World Tag Team titles. Our last stop in the 60s, we see Tiger Jet Singh and Bull Curry defeat Whipper Billy Watson and Bulldog Brower for the Toronto version of the NWA International Tag Team titles. Speaking of those International Tag Team titles, as we move into the 70s, 1973, Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk defeat Killer Carl Krupp and Carl Von Steiger to win those NWA International Tag Team titles. Sticking in 1973, Black Gordman and Goliath win their second NWA Texas Tag Team titles in Dallas, Texas, defeating Jose Lothario and Ivan Putski. Our last stop in the 70s, 1978, Black Gordman and Hector Guerrero defeat Ron Bass and Roddy Piper to win the NWA America's Tag Team titles. Grabbing my boombox and going to the 80s, 1982, Tiger Mask defeats the Black Tiger to win the WWF Junior Heavyweight title in Tokyo, Japan. Making two stops in 1983, Chavo Guerrero defeats Ultra 7 in a tournament final for the vacant NWA International Junior Heavyweight title in Tenryu, Japan. Second stop in 83, Bob Brown and Buzz Tyler won a tournament final for the vacant NWA Central States Tag Team titles. Fast forwarding 2 years to 1985, in Orlando, Florida, Hercules Hernandez defeats Brian Blair to win the Florida version of the NWA Southern Heavyweight title. 1987, the Rock and Roll Express defeat Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude for the NWA World Tag Team titles. Or do they? Rude and Fernandez were the reigning champions when Rude left for the WWF. On some of the NWA syndicated TV shows, it was announced that Rude was injured and being replaced on the championship team by Ivan Koloff. However, Fernandez then left the NWA, so a phantom title change was created. The NWA claimed that the Rock and Roll Express won the belts in Spokane, Washington on this date from Rude and Fernandez. Sticking in 1987, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik were arrested together on charges of drug possession when they were pulled over by police in New Jersey. Grabbing our flannels and going to the decade of grunge, 1996, the worst technical disaster in wrestling pay-per-view history took place at the WWF In Your House 8 Beware of Dog event in Florence, South Carolina. After the opening match of Mark Marrow defeating Hunter Hearst Helmsley, a massive thunderstorm knocked out power to the building. And last but not least, 1997, Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin defeated Owen Hart and the British Bulldog to win the WWF Tag Team titles at Raw is War in Evansville, Indiana. Those were your pro wrestling history highlights for May 26th. I'm the Eclectic Gentleman, Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.